All right, everybody. There's been a lot of activity from the devs on combat styles and the changes that we're going to be seeing with 7.0 and how it's going to affect existing characters versus new characters. I wanted to bring you as much of this information as I can, as a lot of this is something that a lot of us are really interested in and looking forward to. We had a post earlier today on one of the Discords where the dev engages with different people and tells them about, stuff that's happening in the game. Somebody asked if we would be able to swap existing classes for its mirrored class. So we are expecting with Force users to be able to go from a light-sided Force user to a dark-sided Force user on their primary combat style if they reach the Dark or Light 5 Legacy unlock. So the answer to that was no. Existing characters will never have a swap option unless they do not already have the Dark/Light 5 unlocked. There's also something about Act 3 origin story. We'll get into that in a little bit. But basically that was said this morning at about 11, just after 11 in the morning. And then there's a little bit more going on about, somebody asked, Force classes can still swap if they have Dark Light 5 on an existing toon, correct? And the answer is no. If you already have Dark Light 5, you cannot swap. So the ability to swap solely exists because of the restrictions at character create for Force classes. If we did not allow new characters that option, they would have no way to keep that character with an opposite alignment combat style. Those who have already unlocked the restriction do not have any restrictions when choosing a second combat style or creating a new character. So it's a little bit confusing, the wording there, but basically it's talking about your primary class that you pick. They put in some restrictions on the first one with the Dark Light thing, and somebody else asked, well, on PTS it worked fine for classes could change their primary, Force classes could change their primary, but tech wasn't able to change. And the response to that was a bug. So what we saw in PTS of people being able to take a Force user and swap them was a mistake. The restriction is an intentional design decision in this case, and it's not a technical limitation. So from their point of view, they've got a few different things they wanted to do to kind of say, we want you to experience certain things in a certain way. So we are going to restrict some of the things around combat style choices. They don't want a new player experience to feel a little too open. They want to make sure that it still kind of follows something that helps the player get into the game in a way that they feel is going to give them the maximum chance of enjoying it without getting overwhelmed or confused. And so, we kind of got caught in the crossfire, those players who've already been playing for a while and expected to be able to load up 7.0, take our existing Force users and swap them their primary combat style to either Dark or Light, depending on what they wanted, as long as they had Dark and Light 5 unlocked. So sadly, that's wrong. We had a dev tracker post, so a developer responded on the forum saying, oh, don't worry, just to clarify, as long as you meet the requirements, you can swap your Force users between Dark and Light. And that really made it confusing because it made it seem like, oh, sweet, okay, we actually are going to get to keep the ability on existing characters to swap their primary combat style from Dark and Light, as if you already have Dark Light unlocked. And then we got a very recent reply. Somebody said there's 2 BioWare employees giving directly conflicting information, and the response was there's nothing conflicting here. The ability to allow a swap of your advanced class on login of an existing character is a technical limitation. So, they made a post today saying that yes, we're no longer going to be able to take our primary class and be able to swap whatever our existing characters are, which is really sad. So let alone the Dark and Light thing, your existing characters cannot swap their original combat style. So you're stuck with having that one on there no matter what. And then it says, follow up to that, the ability to allow a swap to your mirror of your current Force advanced class via conversation was built specifically with character create restrictions in mind, which only exist for the Force classes. So basically what they've said is, we've got a technical limitation that doesn't allow you to change your primary beginning Force class Force or Tech class, your primary combat style that existing characters already have. So what was previously the, what you would pick when you start up your class. That's a technical limitation. They found it too hard to overcome, allowing people to just freely swap. So they said, nope, we're going to axe that. And then the fact that you can actually swap the Force users to their mirror side when they reach Dark or Light 5 is something they've created. And they're going to have, as a design choice, lock us out of being able to swap an existing character who's a Force user between Dark and Light on their primary combat style. So a little bit of a letdown there. Actually, a pretty big letdown if you ask me. That's something that I was really looking forward to. And we did get some further confirmation about 15 minutes ago at 5 after 3, saying that the most recent dev post saying that you still will be able to swap the Dark and Light has the key thing saying if they meet the light or dark side alignment requirements to do so. So you can switch to the mirror if you have not already unlocked Dark Light 5 and have not finished your Act 3 story, and complete your Act 3 story with opposite alignment. So it sounds like it's going to be a lot more complicated to swap than we originally thought. It does say you could also switch to the mirror if you have already unlocked the Act 3 story but not unlocked Dark Light 5 yet. So you have to finish, it sounds like you're going to have to finish Act 3 on the opposite faction to have the option to swap your mirror class over to it. And you definitely have to make sure you have not finished Dark Light 5. As for the requirement of not finishing the Act 3 story, that got a little bit confusing. I'm not 100% sure what they mean there, but it sounds like generally an existing character who's already finished their Act 3 story is just locked out. An existing character who has already legacy unlocked Dark Light 5, which would be your whole legacy, is locked out. So yeah, it sounds like you're going to be very limited on existing characters to do the Dark Light 5 swap, and you're going to be completely locked out of changing your original combat style on all existing characters. And with that one little exception where they're allowing a certain amount of flexibility to change to the mirror class if you meet a very, very small specific criteria. Yeah, a little bit disappointing there. So let's take a look in game how this is going to look and what the requirements are. So everything about combat styles basically is going to be tied to two different unlocks. You've got your class stories. So under Imperial classes, there's 4 stories here, and everything's going to be tied to this Chapter 3 unlock, Legacy unlock. And then also under Other, you're going to have your Dark 5 and your Light 5 Legacy unlocks. So these are going to determine being able to pick combat styles and choose them. So right off the bat, if you pick an Imperial agent, or you already have an existing Imperial agent, and your Legacy has unlocked this Chapter 3, all your Imperial agents across your Legacy are able to choose a second combat style. If you have Imperial, it sounds like if you have Imperial agent, Chapter 3 unlocked, and you make a Sith Inquisitor and you have not unlocked Chapter 3, you will not be able to pick a second combat style for that Sith Inquisitor. But if you're creating a new character, you will be able to choose from the different combat styles for your primary. So people creating new characters can choose a combat style that's not linked to their... Sorry about that. They can choose a combat style that's not linked to their class story, but existing characters have to have finished completing Chapter 3 to be able to choose a second combat style that's not linked to their character. And anybody who has an existing character that hasn't finished Chapter 3 is going to be stuck with the original default choice that they made. So they can't gain that flexibility. So it seems like as if being a legendary player is going to be a big advantage here, whereas not being a legendary player means that you're either going to have to create a new character to play the story as the combat style you want, or you're going to have to finish Legacy unlocking that on an existing character, and then you could go back and play it through with your other existing characters, which wouldn't be very helpful. That's not what you're looking to do. So that's a little bit... okay. A little bit disappointing, but yeah, it is what it is. So those of you who've already made progress partway through, you're either going to have to choose to make a brand new character to change your combat style for that first playthrough of the story, or just deal with it. And then Dark Light 5, if you haven't already unlocked this, you're going to be given some options once you unlock it to change to the mirror class. it sounds potentially like, say that I'm a Sith Inquisitor for my class story, and I want to choose the mirror side of Republic for a Jedi Consular, that I would potentially need to be having this Chapter 3 Legacy unlocked to pick it. I'm not 100% sure on that. It's still a little bit confusing. I'll just go check and see if we've had a reply on that yet. Sweet. I did get a reply on that from the dev, and they basically said creating brand new characters when you have not Legacy unlocked the Dark and Light 5 will restrict you from choosing your mirror classes. So if you start off as a Sith Inquisitor and you have not Legacy unlocked Dark Light 5, you are stuck picking a dark-sided Force user, and you cannot choose the mirror class light side. But if you're creating a new character and you've already done Dark Light 5 Legacy unlock, you are free to pick the mirror classes when you create a new character. So you don't have to do the chapter thing. But otherwise, yeah, you're going to have to, each class that you want to have a second combat style, they have to have the Legacy unlock for the story, Chapter 3. So as you're going through and finishing your original class story, you cannot have two combat styles unless this is your second time going through that story. And then the Dark Light 5, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, and there's absolutely no ability for existing characters to change their first combat style that they've already picked. The only small exception being those who have not already completed Dark Light 5 Legacy unlock, and something about not completing your Chapter 3 as well on that character. So it gets a little bit sticky there. It's in the weeds. That is what we've been clarified now about combat styles in 7.0, how it's going to look at launch for both existing and new characters that you create. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this update. I took a little bit of a break from work to rush out and try and make some information, as I know this has been a very important topic to people, and there were some posts that made it a bit confusing, as well as telling us that we weren't going to get what we originally expected to be getting. And even the devs have come out saying we had planned to give you something that was a little bit different than this, and unfortunately due to some technical limitations, existing characters won't be able to swap their original combat style that they already have. And there will also be some weirdness around the swapping of your mirror from the Dark Light 5. So there's a small way where you could potentially swap it, but for most people they're not going to be seeing any swap at all. As always, have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.